The smell of motor oil and metallic shavings still clung to my uniform as I pulled into my driveway. 12 hours at the shop, useless, worn out, just trying to peer my toddler, my 1967 Camaro SS, that I might spend 18 months rebuilding from a rust bucket into perfection. I hit the garage far off. The door groaned open, revealing chrome that could blind you and paint so deep you can swim in it. That is while my global exploded. Thief. Someone call 911. He stole my car. My HOA president neighbor Brenda got here charging throughout the lawn like a rabid pit bull. Cellular cell phone already pressed to her ear. Yes, there's a black man stealing my car proper this second. Ship everyone. Police sirens had been already wailing inside the distance. She'd known as earlier than even confronting me. I'm standing in my own driveway, conserving my personal keys, looking at my personal automobile, about to be arrested for theft. What could you do in case your neighbor weaponized the police against you in your personal driveway? Drop a flag emoji. Wherein are you watching from? Let's have a look at how far this insanity travels. My name is Marcus, and I'm a third-era mechanic. My grandfather taught my father taught me, and we've been maintaining vehicles going for walks in this metropolis for 60 years. When my divorce finalized remaining spring, thanks to my ex-wife's surprising discovery that grease underneath fingernails isn't horny, I used what little I had left to buy a modest house in Willowbrook Estates. Center Elegance HOA community where the lawns are perfect, the mailboxes match, and all people minds their personal damn business. Or so the actual property agent promised. The Camaro wasn't some midlife crisis purchase. I discovered her at a property sale 18 months ago, a rusted-out corpse that most of the people would have hauled to the scrapyard for $30. However, under all that decay, I saw pure American muscle waiting to breathe once more. $3,200 later, she become mine. Each weekend for hour and a 1-2 became my non-public resurrection mission. New 350 small block rebuilt turbo, 400 transmission, complete suspension, overhaul. The paint task alone took 4 months of sanding, priming, and moist sanding till the Hugger orange end ought to blind low-flying aircraft. I documented every bolt, each gasket, every drop of sweat with photographs for insurance purposes. Saved each receipt in a 3-ring binder thicker than a phone ebook. The scent of sparkling primer and metal shavings became my Saturday morning cologne. Espresso developing cold on my workbench at the same time as I misplaced myself inside the meditation of mechanical perfection. Input Brenda Wilson, the human embodiment of a homeowners association, fever dream. Brenda moved to Willowbrook 5 years ago and straight away appointed herself queen of the whole thing. Actual estate agent who drives a white BMW that receives specified more frequently than the majority bathe. Manicured nails that have never touched actual work, highlighted hair that defies gravity, and a smile that would freeze Auntie Ray's. She'd been HOA president for 3 years going for walks, unopposed because no person else desired to volunteer for community Gestapo duty. Her distinctiveness became weaponizing office work. Trash cans neglected 12 minutes beyond pickup. Fence posts measuring 2 and 1/8 in preference to regulation 2 in. Mailbox fonts that weren't Willowbrook accredited. The female, as soon as noted me for grass that allegedly handed the 2.5 in maximum, showed up with an actual ruler, simply keeping network standards, she'd stated with that synthetic smile. 2 weeks earlier than the garage door incident, she'd marched over even as I was bleeding brake strains. Nobody's turns, the screech of my impact wrench apparently indignant her delicate sensibilities. Excuse me, however, there is a noise ordinance. No energy equipment after 6 p.m. I wiped my hands on a store rag, stayed diplomatic. In reality, city ordinance permits interest paintings until 900 p.m. satisfied to show you the documentation. Her smile grew to become arctic. Properly. We'll see approximately that. This type of business pastime influences property values. The manner she said commercial activity, like I used to be walking a meth lab in preference to restoring American records. The day the whole lot exploded began with Brenda's monthly pool birthday celebration extravaganza. Saturday morning, her outdoor filled with neighborhood better halves sipping mimosas and pretending to care approximately each other's vacation photographs. said listen to synthetic laughter via my storage wall. Oh, that's my new Camaro. Simply sold it from a classic vehicle supplier in Phoenix. 45-0, but definitely well worth it. They're transported next week. My socket wrench clattered to the concrete floor. She becomes showing people pics on her cell phone. Images of a car equal to mine, basking in their inspired coups like she'd individually invented the combustion engine. That afternoon, needing brake fluid, I fired up my baby and subsidized out slowly. The 350's rumble echoed off the houses like mechanical thunder, deep and primal, and without a doubt gorgeous. When I back an hour later, Brenda stood in her driveway like a statue of suburban rage, palms crossed, face flushed, gazing my car with the depth of a hawk looking a disciplined mouse. Oh, I nodded in a well-mannered way. She failed to reply, just stored uninteresting holes through my Camaro with the one's predator eyes. That night, I am making a bet she spent hours online constructing her myth brick by digital brick, convincing herself that in some way, by some means, I might stolen her imaginary purchase. With the aid of mourning, she'd converted from worrying neighbor into something far greater risky. Karen with a reason. Whilst patrol motors screeched into my driveway with full light display blazing, I knew my peaceful Saturday nighttime turned into formally screwed. 4 officers poured out like they have been responding to an armed bank theft, which, consistent with Brenda's Academy Award, worthy 911 performance, they had been. Officer Rodriguez, a 2012 months veteran with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of a person who'd visible every flavor of community crazy, approached with his hand resting casually on his belt. His associate, a more youthful man named Morgan, who seemed like he bench-pressed squad cars for cardio, flanked him with notebook prepared. Night, sir, we acquired a report about a stolen car at this deal with. The sheer absurdity hit me like a brick to the brow. Stolen automobile, officer. This is my automobile in my storage at my house. This is like saying I stole my very own fridge. Brenda materialized beside the officials like a suburban poltergeist. Nevertheless, clutching her smartphone with white knuckles. It really is him. This is the auto thief. I simply sold that specific Camaro the day past for $45,000. I took a deep breath, tasting the lingering exhaust fumes from my perfectly felony muscle vehicle, and trying not to snicker on the cosmic comic story my existence had ended up. Stay calm, I reminded myself. My vintage guy continually stated, documentation beats desperation every time. Officials, I will show possession proper now. I pulled out my telephone, scrolling to the photograph album I'd obsessively maintained. This automobile has been mine for 18 months. I rebuilt every Rodriguez studied the progression pictures with authentic interest. Rust bucket to rolling chassis to painted perfection. His eyebrows climbed as he swiped through images of me installing the engine block, priming body panels, sewing the interior. It is some serious craftsmanship, he murmured, zooming in on a shot of the engine bay. You try this professionally. Family business. My grandfather might have overwhelmed me with a wrench if I would executed sloppy paintings. Meanwhile, Brenda changed into having what regarded to be a full psychological break. He's lying. Look at these. She thrust revealed pics at the officers, in reality downloaded from a few provider website 5 minutes before calling 911. I wired the cash the previous day. They had been delivery it this week. Chen examined her proof with the keenness of someone reviewing tax documents. Familiar supplier stock pics, no VIN numbers, no actual paperwork, simply sleek pictures that would have been any orange Camaro constructed between 1967 and the day past. Ma'am, you have got purchase documentation, invoice of sale, wire switch receipts, dealer contact data. Brenda's face grew to become the approximate color of a fire engine. It is all being processed. The provider said paperwork takes time for traditional motors. While she improvised her rationalization, I was digging through my garage workbench like an automotive archaeologist. 3. Ring binder prepared by means of date containing the entire genealogy of my mechanical infant. Here's my DMV registration, I stated, handing Rodriguez the holy grail of automobile possession. 18 months old, my name, this cope with. Matching VIN. His flashlight beam danced across the reputable state record. The entirety aligned flawlessly. Numbers, dates, signatures, the works. Coverage policy, too. I flipped to the next plastic sleeve. Modern required pics of the recovery progress for agreed fee coverage. Chen becomes scribbling notes, now and again glancing at Brenda's increasingly innovative factors. The lady turned into unraveling faster than a clearance sweater, and I was beginning to experience almost sorry for her. Nearly. Officials. He obviously solid the whole lot. He's possibly going for walks a few state-of-the-art identification theft operation. That accusation was my cue to installation the nuclear option. From the very return of my binder, I extracted a piece of yellow prison paper, edges gentle from handling and reminiscence, written inside the shaky cursive of a 93 12-months-old widow, 1967 Chevrolet Camaro. Situation as is. Vast rust harm in the course of. $32 100 coins. Purchaser assumes all obligation. Beneath that, a signature that belonged in a museum. Eleanor Hutchinson property sale followed by a phone-wide variety and date from 18 months ago. Rodriguez examined the handwritten bill of sale like he'd observed buried treasure. That is the unique by report. Eleanor become promoting her late husband's challenge cars. Sweetest female you would ever meet. Made me promise to deliver the auto return for her to look when I finished. The silence that followed becomes so whole I ought to pay attention my neighbor's sprinkler machine, 3 homes, down. Chen closed his notebook with the finality of a judge's gavel. This gentleman has clear chain of ownership documentation spanning over air. Your proof appears to be net printouts. Rodriguez's tone shifted to that unique sign-up cops reserve for people having public meltdowns. Ma'am, I want to tell you that filing a false police record is a misdemeanor offense in this nation. My dad changed into a prosecutor for 30 years, and I've seen human beings get real prison time for knowingly imparting false information to law enforcement. The shade tired from Brenda's face like someone had opened a valve. There ought to be some horrible mistake. The pressure of vehicle purchasing. You know how complicated this stuff may be, but her eyes informed a special story. As the officers organized to leave, I stuck her gazing me via her residing room window with the bloodless calculation of a chess grasp planning her subsequent flow. This wasn't over. This become just spherical one. Monday morning slapped me conscious with the subtlety of a diesel engine backfiring. I am stumbling to my mailbox in the day past's paintings garments, coffee mug steaming inside the crisp air once I spot the reputable HOA violation word tucked internal like a venomous snake. Be aware of covenant violation, unauthorized business vehicle garage. The quotation claimed my paintings van, a wonderfully ordinary Ford Transit with Rodriguez circle of relatives car painted on the facet, violated network standards. $200, excellent. 48-hour compliance deadline. Here. At the bottom, Brenda's signature flourished like she simply signed my demise warrant. Via my kitchen window, I watched her electricity stroll past my driveway, taking pictures glances at my vanador, turned into parked on her grandmother's grave. Her morning jog path had mysteriously improved to include 17 passes by using my residence. I counted. Here's what maximum homeowners don't realize approximately HOA covenants. They are actual felony contracts, not suggestions written by way of suburban dictators having midlife crises. My divorce legal professional taught me that the entirety has a paper trail, and paper trails don't lie. I spent my lunch wreck on the county courthouse digging through public records like an automotive archaeologist. What I found was better than finding a winning lottery price tag in my returned pocket. My van purchased in 2017, 3 years before Willowbrook enacted their business vehicle regulations in 2020. Any cars owned before rule modifications are robotically grandfathered in, protected by way of law from retroactive enforcement. Brenda may want to bitch until her vocal cords snap. The receptionist's eyes widened as she read my rebuttal, possibly calculating how much hassle her starboard member had just bought herself. Oh, pricey, she whispered like she turned into looking an automobile twist of fate in gradual motion. Mrs. Wilson is not going to understand this development. She had that proper. By means of Wednesday, my mailbox had ended up Brenda's non-public grievance distribution middle. 3 greater violation notices materialized like terrible magic. Alleged oil stains on my driveway. I energy wash monthly with the willpower of a monk. Immoderate automotive odors from my garage. Apparently, the honest scent of WD-40 and backbone indignant her delicate suburban sensibilities, and noise violations in the course of flawlessly felony hours. The lady become carpet bombing me with paperwork, hoping something could stick long sufficient to reason harm. It really is when I made the smartest funding of this entire war. I went full large brother by myself belonging. 4 high-def security cameras strategically placed, all recording to cloud storage with night imaginative and prescient that would spot a mosquito landing on my mailbox. The footage found out Brenda's new interest: property line surveillance. Each morning, she'd patrol our shared fence along with her iPhone, taking photographs, measuring distances with a collapsible backyard stick that probably fee more than my monthly grocery price range. The woman had became neighbor looking into an Olympic game. Thursday night introduced the nuclear alternative, an emergency board assembly to cope with my ongoing violations. The attention regarded in my mailbox at 4 p.m. for a 700 p.m. meeting. Barely criminal notification designed to save you everyone from mounting an actual defense. I confirmed up at the community center waiting for a kangaroo court and found something worse. 3 center-aged women sitting round a convention desk like they have been planning a church fundraiser. Brenda, her nervous Lieutenant Clara, who apologized for breathing too loudly. And Janet, whose number 1 qualification seemed to be nodding enthusiastically at everything Brenda said. "In which is the rest of the board?" I asked, claiming a chair throughout from this improvised tribunal. Brenda's smile ought to have preserved meat for iciness. "This is pretty enough for tonight's business. We're enforcing an emergency ban on all automotive restore sports, powerful at once." Beyond violations bring a $500 quality. I pulled out my telephone and opened the HOA bylaws I'd memorized that afternoon. Expertise is power, however carried out information is a tactical nuclear weapon. Captivating theory. But phase 4 are these SOAR. 3 requires 7 days superior notice for balloting matters. I scrolled through the document like I was reading a eating place menu. And Section 4.7 mandates a quorum of 5 board individuals for legit votes. I regarded around the pathetically empty room. A B counted 3 people, which offers this assembly all the legal authority of a neighborhood ebook membership. Clara's face turned the color of overcooked shrimp. Properly, this is simply initial discussion in segment 2. 9 states that invalid meetings create non-public liability for man or woman board contributors. I'd accomplished my homework. Wait to 3 hours of criminal research and a pot of very sturdy espresso. Brenda's composure shattered like protection glass. "You watched You Were So Clever, don't you? Entering our neighborhood along with your people and your activities." The venom in her voice could have stripped paint. However, my old man taught me something precious approximately handling bullies. Stay calm. Stick with data. Allow loopy humans grasp themselves with their very own rope. "I think I'm owner of a house who reads contracts earlier than signing them," I answered. Novel concept, I recognize. This is Wells' neighbor Tom appeared in my driveway later, apologetic and barely embarrassed. "Maximum folks assume she's completely lost it," he confided. "Need to seize coffee day after today? I suppose it is time we talk." Friday morning added an unexpected doorbell symphony at 7:15 a.m. Dave Martinez from Town Code Enforcement stood on my porch, clipboard in hand, and the thousand-yeast stare of a person who'd spent too many years mediating neighbor wars. "Sorry to hassle you this early. Mr. Rodriguez." "Anonymous grievance about unlicensed commercial auto repair. Mind if I take a look?" I allow him into my garage where the morning light illuminated my weekend sanctuary. The smell of metal polish and easy motor oil hung in the air like costly aftershave. And every device had its targeted domestic on pegboard partitions that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep with envy. Dave's tension evaporated the instant he stepped in her. "Jesus, this is cleaner than the shop wherein I get my truck serviced." He ran his finger along my workbench, arising spotless. "What do you do for paintings?" "Own family mechanic enterprise. That is pure hobby. Weekends only. No clients." He nodded, scribbling notes at the same time as admiring my engine hoist setup. Anonymous complainant claimed, "You have been strolling an illegal enterprise." I see zero evidence of business pastime, patron cars, or cash transactions. You are surely golden. As Dave climbed back into his town truck, he paused with one foot at the going for walks board. Off the record, I've been to this neighborhood 4 times this month. Equal voice on every occasion, special court cases. Girl wishes a interest that doesn't contain my branch. Brenda's subsequent master stroke arrived via certified mail. A formal grievance to my homeowner's insurance company. Yeah. She'd contacted Progressive without delay, claiming my garage sports created an unacceptable fire hazard threatening neighboring properties. The letter demanded instant inspection or policy cancellation. While my coverage agent invoice showed up Tuesday afternoon, I braced for bureaucratic hell. Alternatively, I found a kindred spirit who spent the primary 10 minutes admiring my Camaro's engine bay. Love, it was the signed chapel. Whoa, someone's virtually looking to screw with you, he said, signing his inspection document with a flourish. Your fireplace safety setup exceeds business standards. Those community garages are death traps with their propane tanks and extension cord Christmas trees. Bill's business enterprise responded via sending Brenda a end and desist letter that basically translated to, forestall filing fake insurance claims or we'll prosecute you for fraud, Karen. However, our neighborhood Napoleon had determined the nuclear weapon of modern war, social media. The Willowbrook neighborhood watch Facebook institution materialized in a single day like a digital cancer. Brenda's inaugural post featured pics of my work van and garage, accompanied by memes of prose that would make a dog whistle manufacturer proud. Just worried approximately retaining our beautiful network standards. She wrote with enough synthetic sweetness to cause diabetes. A few latest activities might be extra appropriate in commercial zones. Don't you believe you studied? Tom confirmed me the screenshots over espresso, his face redder than a fire engine. 23 people joined inside the first hour. It's like looking at dumpster hearth, but you cannot appearance away. The remark phase became a gladiatorial area. Numerous buddies jumped to my defense, sharing their own Brenda horror testimonies. Others lurked silently, in all likelihood calculating the social price of opposing the HOA reigning dictator. Brenda's digital dictatorship imploded when she began deleting unpleasant feedback. Not anything ignites suburban fury pretty like apparent censorship, and shortly the organization fractured into warring factions, debating the whole thing from unfastened speech to belongings values. Sunday morning delivered escalation to my actual assets, scattered across my driveway like steel confetti. 24 roofing nails strategically located to puncture unwary tires. My security cameras captured the 2 a.m. culprit, a figure in a darkish hoodie moving with the worried electricity of a person committing their first felony. The footage became grainy, however that distinctive quick-step march appeared. Brenda walked like she became continually overdue for an issue. Officer Morgan treated my police report with suitable seriousness, mainly once I explained the escalating harassment timeline. Traditional intimidation pattern, he discovered, photographing the proof. File the whole lot. Those cases simmer for months, then explode into arrests in no time. Whilst obsessively reviewing Digicam photos, I noticed something that made my coffee move cold. Brenda's morning recurring now covered particular reconnaissance missions, strolling our assets line together with her cell phone, measuring distances, photographing angles. This wasn't random harassment. She changed into accomplishing military-grade surveillance for a few larger operation. Wednesday's mail introduced the nuclear choice, a nameless letter on customary printer paper. Your type doesn't belong right here. Depart voluntarily or face escalating outcomes. No signature, no return deal with. However, the paper stock matched Brenda's HOA notices flawlessly. My divorce lawyer had taught me sufficient about record analysis to recognize equal watermarks and printer signatures. Detective Martinez, assigned to my developing case document, tested the letter with expert interest. Anonymous threatening correspondence qualifies for hate crime prosecution beneath each state and federal statutes, she defined. We are building a widespread criminal case against your neighbor. That evening, Tom's Coffee Save Coalition multiplied to 6 families, each armed with their own Brenda documentation. Mike, the attorney, were fined for unauthorized mailbox fonts. Sarah, the accountant, got stated for planting flowers without architectural committee approval. Time for coordinated resistance, Tom declared. Stirring sugar with revolutionary fervor. Person lawsuits get ignored. Group movement gets effects. As we shared warfare memories and legal techniques, I realized Brenda had accidentally created her personal worst nightmare. A unified community opposition with valid grievances and professional expertise. The hunter had emerged as the hunted. Friday afternoon found me in the county courthouse basement, a fluorescent-lit purgatory that smelled like vintage coffee and bureaucratic melancholy. The fax clerk, a female who'd apparently been filing documents because the Carter administration directed me to analyze Room B with the passion of someone pointing in the direction of a public restroom. HOA monetary facts are inside the corporate filings, she wheezed, sliding a dusty container across the counter. Properly good fortune-making experience of that mess. 3 hours later, surrounded by paper stacks that gave the look of a tornado had hit an accounting firm, I discovered why Brenda guarded these files like nuclear release codes. Willowbrook's HOA monetary statements examined like a masterclass in innovative embezzlement. $15,000 paid to B&B Asset Solutions for undefined consulting offerings. $8,500 to Brenda's high-quality gardens for landscaping that had never materialized. $12,000 to Wilson and Friends for legal services that coincidentally began precisely whilst Brenda's divorce court cases began. The stunning part, all three businesses shared the identical business cope with. 1247 Maple Lane, Brenda's house. A brief dive into the state enterprise registry confirmed what my intestine already knew. B&B Property Solutions sole owner Brenda Wilson installed 6 months after her divorce filing. Brenda's exceptional gardens formally dissolved, closing 12 months after finishing 0 actual tasks. Wilson and Buddies, her ex-husband's regulation company, which defined her sudden need for untraceable income. Our elected HOA president had been systematically looting the neighborhood fund like a suburban Pablo Escobar, funneling approximately $78,000 into her non-public prison defense fund over 2 years. But the discovery that made my arms shake wasn't the robbery itself. It turned into the searching sample hidden underneath. Coherence criticism dates with current real estate sales. I uncovered Brenda's authentic business model. She'd systematically goal owners with escalating harassment until they offered beneath market price, then use her actual property license to facilitate brief sales to investor contacts. Double commission plus kickbacks from thankful consumers, choosing up distressed houses. 3 families had fled Willowbrook and the pastor after surviving Brenda's special attention. The Henderson offered $40,000 beneath appraisal after months of citations about their son's basketball hoop, creating excessive noise. The Patels surrendered and moved after weekly violations for culturally irrelevant cooking odors that allegedly violated network requirements. My case fit her playbook perfectly. Unmarried homeowner, no-owned family aid network, top belongings really worth $380,000. Ideal goal for pressured sale manipulation. The nuclear revelation became buried in a stack of foreclosures notices. And while I found it, I absolutely laughed out loud in that tomb quiet studies room. Brenda's personal residence became in default. $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues to her own affiliation. Again, taxes, attorney expenses, credit card debt, the works. Her foreclosures listening to changed into scheduled for precisely 4 weeks from nowadays. The irony turned into so best it belonged in a rustic music. Our HOA president, the lady who terrorized pals over minor rule violations, hadn't paid her very own dues in over a year. The whole lot clicked into cognizance like adjusting a digital camera lens. Prita P. The escalating desperation, the increasingly unhinged harassment, the willingness to document fake police reviews. Brenda wasn't just a electricity, hungry Karen. She changed into a cornered animal facing economic obliteration, and I represented her remaining risk at a first-rate fee earlier than the bank seized the whole thing. The Camaro incident had given her the ideal excuse to accelerate her timeline. I photocopied the entirety, my hands trembling slightly as the system hummed via page after page of evidence. $17 for the privilege of documenting my neighbor's criminal company. The first-rate money I'd ever spent. Walking again to my truck inside the courthouse parking zone, I called Tom with news that could reshape our complete approach. You sitting down? Due to the fact what I simply observed adjustments, everything. The battle became about to shift from survival to offense, and Brenda had no concept the lure was remaining round her. Saturday morning converted Tom's storage into challenge managed for Operation Takedown Karen. The air smelled like espresso, motor oil, and the sweet scent of forthcoming justice. As our mule group of suburban rebels accrued around a folding desk that had seen higher decades, Tom had assembled what I should most effective describe because the Avengers of Neighborhood battle. Sarah Morgan, a forensic accountant who could spot embezzlement like a bloodhound tracking Beaverbrook. Mike Patterson, a semi-retired company legal professional whose concept of amusing become destroying human beings in depositions. Linda Martinez, a high college instructor with organizational talents that could make NASA jealous. And Carlos Menz, a contractor who knew each building code loophole in the Tri-County area. Jesus Christ on a cracker, Sarah muttered, spreading Brenda's financial records throughout the desk like a CSI investigator examining murder evidence. This woman's embezzlement method has all the subtlety of a brick through a window. Mike pushed his studying glasses up his nostril, scanning files with the predatory consciousness of a shark smelling blood. 78,000 in fraudulent transactions, paper path purifier than my grandmother's kitchen. Documented harassment sample. Prosecutors dream about cases this smooth. Linda changed into pretty creating her signature color-coded timeline on poster board, mapping harassment campaigns against real property income with the precision of someone who'd spent 20 years making young adults recognize algebra. Look at this beautiful sample. Goal-susceptible families escalate violations for months, then mysteriously produce investor consumers when they smash. Carlos leaned again in his folding chair, letting out a whistle that would summon puppies from 3 blocks away. And she's using HOA cash to pay divorce attorneys. It is not criminal genius. That is crook silly. Our warfare plan emerged over 2 hours of an increasing number of caffeinated strategy classes. Operation documentation. Fort Carlos volunteered to show our neighborhood into Castle Knox with security cameras, motion sensors, nighttime vision, cloud backup. This female so much as glances sideways at your mailbox will have it documented in court fine 4K. Linda released into full teacher mode, developing standardized incident report forms with the thoroughness of a person designing a final examination. Dates, times, witnesses, pictures, police report numbers. We are constructing a case record so airtight it could continue to exist a nuclear blast. Sarah was almost rubbing her hands collectively with forensic accounting glee. Calling colleagues who owe me favors. We're going to produce an independent audit that meets federal court docket requirements. Operation Felony Annihilation. Mike explained HOA company governance like he became describing his favorite hobby, which it apparently was. Board contributors have fiduciary responsibilities beneath kingdom law. Each fraudulent transaction creates non-public liability. She's no longer simply stealing, she's destroying her own criminal safety. The annual board elections had been perfectly timed for max harm. Tom, Sarah, and Mike might run for the 3 open positions, flipping control from Brenda's rubber stamp committee to our Justice Coalition. Criminal grievance receives filed Tuesday. Mike endured, organizing police reviews with the delight of someone solving a move phrase puzzle. Embezzlement, harassment, fake police reports. She's searching at a prison buffet. Operation Public Humiliation. Linda's coaching history made her our propaganda minister. Do or Do Records campaign. Expert flyers explaining the robbery. Coordinated social media. Exposure. We make Brenda's crimes anyone's dinner desk conversation. The economic effect become community destroying. 78,000 stolen from 40 households. Intended every family have been systematically overcharged almost $2,000. When soccer moms find out their HOA president has been picking their wallet, suburban revolutions take place rapid. Carlos suggested the media angle that could make this tale journalist catnip. HOA president steals cash at the same time as racially harassing pals. Channel 7 would interrupt regular programming for this gold mine. Our psychological warfare strategy became elegantly simple. Let Brenda assume she was winning whilst we constructed a legal cage round her. I'd hold normal routines, appear oblivious to her schemes, and permit her desperation to generate more prosecutable proof. Traditional rope-a-dope, Mike explained with the satisfaction of someone who'd spent a long time destroying fighters in courtrooms. Permit her exhaust herself throwing wild punches while we record every overlooked swing. The timeline convergence turned into poetry. Brenda's foreclosure hearing in 3 weeks, audit results in 2 weeks, board elections in 4 weeks. More than one failures arriving simultaneously like a superbly choreographed demolition. Sarah had already contacted Channel 7's investigative pitbull, Janet Generators, a reporter who'd constructed her Emmy collection exposing suburban corruption. HOA fraud stories generate massive scores. She's almost drooling to cover this train ruin. Snell tore this. Mike determined the very last nail for Brenda's professional coffin. Her real property license renewal in 6 weeks required crook heritage disclosure. Fraud conviction supposed automated everlasting revocation. Whole profession obliteration, he stated with the nice and cozy delight of a person describing a great sundown. Monetary break plus professional destruction equals general annihilation. As our suburban conflict council dispersed, Tom grabbed my shoulder with authentic appreciate. 2 months in the past, you had been the quiet mechanic who minded his own commercial enterprise. Now you're commanding a community revolution. I surveyed our evidence partitions, battle plans, and coalition schedules. The transformation from isolated target to resistance chief felt surreal. Like coming across you may fly. Every now and then bullies choose the wrong victim, I responded. Brenda's approximately to study that lesson the difficult way. The lure turned into baited, loaded, and perfectly located. Now we just waited for our cornered predator to trigger her own destruction. Monday morning introduced the candy sound of panic inside the form of Brenda's voice echoing across the neighborhood like a hearth alarm, having a frightened breakdown. She began pacing her driveway at 7:00 a.m. Phone pressed to her ear, gesticulating wildly at everybody unfortunate sufficient to make eye touch. I want an emergency board meeting tonight. Something's happening, and I want prison protection. Through my kitchen window. I watched her try and rally her swiftly shrinking assist base. Clara shuffled over reluctantly, looking like she'd instead be getting a root canal. Janet accompanied a couple of minutes later, but even from a distance, I should see the doubt creeping into their body language. The emergency assessment observed seemed in every mailbox through noon. $500 per family for fast prison defense against out-of-doors agitators attempting to destabilize community governance. The letter claimed I used to be threatening to sue the whole HOA's demanded immediate price to hire legal professionals. What Brenda didn't recognize turned into that Tom attended her pathetic 3-person assembly hidden inside the network middle automobile parking space with a virtual recorder that picked up every desperate phrase. They're investigating our finances. Brenda's voice crackled through the speaker while Tom played it, returned later. I do not know how lots they understand, but we want to govern the narrative earlier than this gets out of hand. Claire's worried response became barely audible. Brenda, maybe we have to just know. I have worked too tough building this network to let them spoil the entirety. If I must depart Metropolis first class. However, I'm no longer taking place on my own. The audio first class became courtroom equipped, and Mike's predatory grin when he heard it is able to have powered the community avenue lights. Wednesday night introduced Brenda's first act of actual desperation. Vandalism with an aspect of stupidity. My protection cameras stuck her sneaking around my property at 2:47 a.m., dressed like a suburban ninja, in black yoga pants, and a dark hoodie that fooled simply no one. She'd brought a toolkit of petty revenge, tire-slashing knife, spray paint, and what appeared to be small bins of motor oil staged in the back of my storage. The plan became obviously to create proof of environmental violations. However, Brenda had never been accused of criminal genius. The beautiful component, she spent 15 minutes positioning fake evidence while status immediately under my motion activated flood mild, presenting crystal clear pictures of her face, her BMW license plate, and her pathetic attempt at frame-up artistry. Thursday morning's code enforcement visit became her maximum staggering failure, but the inspector found the planted oil boxes immediately. They nevertheless had domestic depot fee stickers attached. Pythazers that talked about that sparkling motor oil would not create environmental violations. Besides, Brenda's tail collapsed faster than a house of cards in a storm. Ma'am, submitting fake environmental reports is a federal offense, the inspector explained with barely hid infection. I'm documenting this incident and forwarding it to our fraud research unit. Brenda's social media meltdown started that afternoon and endured through the weekend like a digital dumpster hearth that no one should appearance far from. The Willowbrook Community Watch Facebook organization have become her private remedy consultation, whole with increasingly unhinged rants approximately outdoor agitators and property value destruction. Her 2 a.m. submit on Friday changed into a masterpiece of self-incrimination. A few human beings don't take into account that groups have requirements. When certain factors flow in and begin changing the character of installed neighborhoods, decent humans need to take action to guard their investments. Screenshots stored, forwarded to our felony group. So, Saturday introduced the bribery attempt that sealed her destiny. Carlos changed into putting in camera device at Linda's house when Brenda approached with the subtlety of a used vehicle salesman at month give up. I recognize Marcus is paying you people to lie approximately me, she said, pulling out an envelope thick enough to choke a horse. $2,000 cash in case you forget about those safety cameras and stop assisting with this harassment marketing campaign. Carlos, bless his contractor's soul, stored putting in cameras whilst recording the complete communication on his phone. Ma'am, I am just supporting associates defend their property. Maybe you need to speak to an attorney. I don't need lawyers. I need this neighborhood returned below control. Her voice pitched better than a smoke detector. That guy has turned everybody against me together with his lies and manipulation. The desperation becomes so thick you could spread it on toast. Brenda changed into unraveling in actual time, and every frantic circulate was developing extra evidence for our growing prosecution report. Sunday nighttime delivered the nuclear choice. Every other fake police record claiming I would threaten her with a weapon in the course of a driveway confrontation that by no means happened. The responding officers observed me in my garage, covered in grease, operating on a neighbor's transmission with 3 witnesses' gift. Officer Morgan's persistence had officially evaporated. Ma'am, that is your 4th false file in 2 weeks. You are looking at expenses. The preliminary audit effects arrived Monday through Sarah's encrypted email, and the numbers had been even worse than our original estimates. Brenda hadn't simply stolen 78.0. She'd been systematically overcharging every household for phantom services at the same time as pocketing the extra. Total theft, about $96.0 over 30 months. A community dictator wasn't simply broke and desperate. She changed into a career crook who'd in the end run out of sufferers and time. The endgame changed into accelerating past our wildest projections, and Brenda become doing all of the work for us. Tuesday night times damage and became the kind of criminal masterpiece that could make the Three Stooges proud. At 2:33 a.m., while regular people had been dreaming about excursion locations and prevailing lottery numbers, Brenda was living her nice burglar life on the other side. The safety photos looked like a rejected scene from a heist movie written by means of someone who'd never absolutely devoted against the law. There has been their suburban Napoleon using a stolen master key with all of the stealth of a rhinoceros in faucet footwear, frantically feeding files into a business shredder like she was making the sector's most costly confetti. The silent alarm precipitated quicker than Brenda's not unusual sense had abandoned her, and Officer Rodriguez arrived to locate her elbow deep in proof destruction, surrounded with the aid of paper snow that was once financial information. Ma'am, step far away from the PC and position your palms in which I will see them, Rodriguez commanded, likely questioning how his Tuesday night shift had changed into amateur hour at the crime academy. Brenda's reaction was natural daytime television gold. You don't recognize. They are destroying the entirety I've built. Zork turned into best earlier than they got here. The scent of overheated electronics and determined sweat stuffed the office as she turned into cuffed and examined her rights. Looking the photos later, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Sorry for her. Almost. Until I remembered the fake police review's whole slashing incidents. Bail becomes set at $25,000, which for Brenda might as properly have been $25 million. Thinking about her economic scenario resembled the enormous after meeting the iceberg. She spent 3 days in county lockup. Likely the first time in her adult existence she'd been someplace without a supervisor to winch to. Even as our fallen dictator was enjoying government hospitality, Clara made the selection that could seal Brenda's fate forever. She visited the prison with a digital recorder hidden in her handbag. And what she captured turned into prosecutorial poetry. I need your assist, Clara? Brenda's voice cracked through the smartphone speaker when Clara performed the recording for our coalition. The desperation turned into so thick you may taste it. There is cash in my storage in the back of the water heater. Cash. We can each disappear earlier than this receives worse. Clara's nervous reaction barely registered. Brenda, I cannot. $50,000. Assist me and we start over somewhere. They do not know us. Mike whistled low when he heard the recording. Admissions of robbery, conspiracy, flight threat, obstruction of justice. This girl just confessed to the whole lot at the same time as sitting in prison. It's like she's looking to set facts for crook stupidity. Thursday nighttime's emergency community assembly packed the community center beyond capacity. The air crackled with righteous fury and the one-of-a-kind aroma of community center espresso that would strip paint. 43 families showed up, and the collective anger should have powered Las Vegas. For a week, sigh. Tom offered Sarah's very last audit consequences with the satisfaction of someone revealing a straight flush. The numbers have been amazing. Brenda hadn't just stolen $78,000. She'd operated a crook agency that protected phantom seller bills, inflated provider contracts, and kickback schemes, totaling $112,000 over 3 years. Each single circle of relatives in this room has been systematically robbed. Tom introduced to gasps and innovative profanity that could make sailors blush. Average theft per family, $2,800. The vote of no confidence became unanimous, except for Janet, who abstained even as looking like she desired to tunnel via the floor and emerge someplace in Canada. 33 households demanded Brenda's immediate removal, crook prosecution, and full restitution with interest. Friday morning added the media circus Brenda had always craved, simply no longer in the starring role she'd imagined. Channel 7's news van arrived at dawn, followed by crews from competing stations who'd caught wind of the suburban scandal gold mine. Investigative reporter Janet Generators interviewed associates with the keenness of a person who'd stumbled onto Emmy cloth. The night news led with HOA president arrested in big embezzlement scheme, complete with Brenda's mug shot and safety footage of her report shredding performance artwork. My interview required each ounce of diplomatic training my divorce had supplied. This isn't about revenge or getting even, I informed the camera, deciding on words carefully. It's approximately conserving people responsible once they abuse positions of trust. The story exploded across social media faster than gossip at an excessive college reunion. At Oren trending nationally within hours, with hundreds sharing their very own nightmare tales and celebrating our community's David versus Goliath victory. Brenda's real estate profession disintegrated in marvelous fashion. Her brokerage suspended her license without delay. Beyond clients began filing proceedings, approximately suspicious transactions, and her expert recognition became extra toxic than nuclear waste. The foreclosure auction proceeded without drama. Brenda's residence bought for $280,000, $70,000 below market price because crook investigations and news vans generally tend to deter biders. Saturday's 3:0 a.m. Facebook confession video changed into her very last act of self-destruction. Sobbing into her telephone digicam, mascara strolling like summary artwork, she blamed all and sundry except herself for the effects of her criminal choices. I used to be simply looking to guard our network, she wailed to the net. On occasion, desirable humans ought to make difficult choices. The remarks segment became a digital firing squad wherein buddies shared years of accumulated grievances. The video disappeared within hours. However, screenshots are forever. Our suburban tyrant's reign of terror was formally over. The sentencing hearing on a crisp Thursday morning felt like the season finale of the world's maximum enjoyable truth display. The courthouse parking lot resembled a neighborhood reunion with 40-plus citizens carpooling like we have been heading to the world's most vital carrying occasion. Choose Patricia Hernandez's court docket became packed past capability. Each pew packed with faces I would come to recognize as allies over the past 3 months. The scent of apprehensive energy in courthouse coffee mixed with the collective anticipation of folks that had waited. Brenda sat on the defendant's desk in an orange jumpsuit that clashed spectacularly along with her fake blonde highlights, searching like a deflated balloon animal beside her overworked public defender. The female who'd once terrorized our neighborhood with clipboard authority now resembled the suburban scarecrow that had misplaced a fight with a twister. Channel 7's cameras had been positioned for optimum drama, and Janet Mills had scored front row seats for what she'd already known as the maximum gratifying HOA tale of the last decade. Whilst aside Hernandez called for victim impact statements, I stood first, my heart hammering towards my ribs. Love it changed into trying to get away. 3 months in the past, I'd been a quiet mechanic who stored to himself. These days, I used to be speaking for an entire network. Your Honor, this situation started out with a lady calling 911 because I opened my personal garage door. I started, my voice steadier than I would anticipated. But it changed into by no means actually about a automobile. It was approximately electricity, manipulating what happens when a person comes to a decision they could terrorize their buddies without consequences. I defined the escalating harassment, the faux police reviews, the systematic theft that had robbed each family of thousands of greenbacks. However, by and large, I talked about worry, the way Brenda had weaponized authority to make human beings afraid in their personal houses. She failed to simply thieve our cash. I persevered making eye contact with Brenda, who refused to appearance again. She stole our peace of thoughts, our sense of network, our belief that acquaintances look out for each other rather than preying on each other. Tom spoke next, his postal people voice wearing the authority of someone who'd visible human nature at its worst and first rate. And Sarah provided the economic evidence with forensic precision. Linda defined the instructional effect of watching their network get up to corruption. Whilst it was Brenda's turn, her attorney launched right into a overall performance worthy of community theater. Mental fitness struggles, divorce trauma, economic pressure, every excuse besides personal responsibility for crook conduct. My consumer deeply regrets her movements, the public defender pleaded. She's willing to make complete restitution and undergo counseling. Brenda subsequently stood to address the courtroom, and what got her out was pure, undiluted audacity wrapped in crocodile tears. I in no way meant to harm anybody, she sobbed, dabbing her eyes with tissues that had seen greater motion than a NASCAR pit group. This community supposed the whole lot to me. I was simply trying to hold requirements, defend belongings' values. From time to time, humans do not remember the fact that leadership requires difficult decisions. The court docket's collective eye roll was nearly audible. Even her own attorney appeared like he desired to crawl under the defense desk. Juz Hernandez had truly heard sufficient for one lifetime. Miss Wilson, in 30 years on this bench, I've hardly ever encountered any such systematic abuse of fiduciary duty blended with racial harassment and criminal intimidation. She paused, reading Brenda with the expression of a person inspecting an interesting, however repulsive, insect specimen. You held the position of agree with and used it to steal from the very those who elected you. You focused a minority house owner with false police reports that could have led to tragedy. You destroyed evidence, attempted to flee jurisdiction, and even now refuse to just accept responsibility to your crimes. The judge's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. This court docket sentences you to 4 years in Kingdom Prison, full restitution of $112,000 plus court docket prices, and 5 years supervised probation following release. The gavel got here down like thunder, and the court erupted in applause that decided Hernandez didn't even try to quiet. 40 households getting justice sounds distinct than normal applause. It's deeper, more fulfilling, like the sound of the universe correcting itself. As Brenda was led away in shackles, she eventually regarded returned at our section of the court docket. The expression on her face wasn't remorse or apology. It became pure, concentrated hatred for individuals who dared to hold her accountable. Outdoor on the courthouse steps, with cameras rolling and neighbors celebrating, a reporter thrust a microphone in my course. Mr. Rodriguez, what would you inform other house owners managing HOA abuse? Reality wins, I said, feeling the load of 3 months' worth of conflict and triumph in those 6 phrases. The quote might move viral inside hours, turning into a rallying cry for HOA reform actions national. However, status there in the sunshine, surrounded by using buddies who'd become own family through shared warfare, I realized something profound. We hadn't simply defeated a bully. We might located what a actual network should accomplish while exact humans decided to fight lower back collectively. The Yankee dream wasn't pretty much man or woman success. It was about associates protecting associates, justice serving everybody similarly, and normal humans becoming notable when occasions demanded it. 6 months after Brenda's sentencing, Willowbrook Estates had transformed from a suburban police state into something similar to a real network. The smell of Saturday morning barbecues and the sound of children gambling in yards without fear had replaced the anxiety that used to hold over our community, like smog. Our new HOA board, Tom as president, Sarah as treasurer, Mike managing prison affairs, applied radical principles like transparency and commonplace sense. Month-to-month economic reports had been published online. Board conferences had been truly introduced in advance, and violation notices required photographic proof and reasonable timelines. The network lawn project that Brenda could have cited into oblivion became now flourishing in the former restrained use area at the back of the clubhouse. Linda coordinated the planting timetable with the efficiency of a person organizing an army operation and watching buddies who'd slightly spoken earlier than sharing tomato seedlings become better than any therapy. Assets values, paradoxically, had increased 15% because our dictator's elimination. Seems consumers select neighborhoods known for community that defeated corruption over how a president embezzles cash whilst harassing minorities. Who knew? The restitution payments arrived like Christmas morning, spread across 12 months. Each family obtained their stolen money plus hobby. And watching buddies pay down credit score cards and plan real vacations with recovered budget felt like monetary justice and movement. Brenda's jail fact became appreciably much less secure than her preceding lifestyle. In line with Clara, who'd maintained touch through guilt and morbid curiosity, our former community Napoleon became running inside the prison laundry for 60 cents an hour, even as sharing a mobile with someone who dedicated real armed robbery. The documentary film college students from Country College had turned our tale into Garage Door Justice, an American tale, which gained the nearby film competition and got picked up for country-wide distribution. I donated my look charges to establish the Willowbrook Automobile Training Scholarship, funded through Brenda's ongoing restitution payments, which felt like poetic justice with a mechanical twist. 3 young adults had already obtained scholarships to attend Technical University for automotive applications. Looking Diego Martinez, Linda's nephew, graduate from Community University with a companion diploma in automobile aero, was higher than any automobile show trophy I would ever won. My non-public life had advanced in guidelines I might by no means anticipated. Sarah and I were relationship slowly and carefully for 4 months, bonding over shared studies of status up to bullies and coming across that forensic accountants and mechanics had more not unusual than either career may assume. The Camaro that started out this complete saga was now well known in traditional automobile circles, featured in magazines as the auto that defeated an HOA Karen. I would obtained offers to sell, however some things aren't for sale, specifically cars that by chance became symbols of standing up to institutional racism and suburban tyranny. Each Sunday, I nevertheless drove to vehicle suggests, but now I added acquaintances kids who have been interested in studying approximately engines restoration and the satisfaction of fixing matters with your very own palms. Coaching Carlos Jr. away to adjust valve clearances at the same time as his father watched with satisfaction become really worth more than any fee Brenda ought to have stolen. The prison precedent our case established was being mentioned in HOA fraud prosecutions across 3 states. Mike were invited to speak at prison conferences approximately fiduciary duty violations. And our documentation techniques have been being taught in community, organizing workshops nationwide. State legislature handed the Willowbrook Act, requiring annual economic audits for all HOA Stories with budgets over $50,000. The invoice signing right protected PICs with the governor. However, the actual victory turned into knowing that other neighborhoods would not should go through what we might survive. Last month's email from a viewer in Phoenix, any other veteran being burdened by his HOA president, jogged my memory that our story had inspired human beings facing similar battles across the country. I began consulting with different communities pro bono, sharing documentation techniques and coalition constructing strategies that had labored for us. The community block events have been now month-to-month traditions, with all people contributing dishes and stories, and the kind of actual friendship that Brenda's rule had made impossible. Looking youngsters from extraordinary households gambling collectively whilst adults shared grilling recommendations and home repair. Recommendation felt like coming across what suburbs had been presupposed to be. As I write this, I can pay attention Tom's lawnmower and smell Linda's weekend baking undertaking drifting via my garage home windows. The sounds of a healthful community, productive pastime, voluntary cooperation, people deciding on to assist every different as opposed to tear each other down. Percentage your HOA nightmare memories within the feedback below. Your documentation and endurance may encourage a person else to fight back against their neighborhood tyrant. And remember to subscribe for more tales proving that justice nonetheless works while normal humans refuse to accept notable next week. Karen attempts to scouse borrow military veteran carrier dog learns approximately federal crimes. The tough way. From absolutely everyone here at HOA Stories, thank you so much for looking modern Haze Karen meltdown. In case you loved seeing associates stand their floor and karma seize up, destroy that like button, depart a remark together with your thoughts, and subscribe so you might not pass over the subsequent OE drama we deliver you.